We've been to Texas and back. We've been to Shields Arena a couple times. But the work in progress, like I say, we are working and we are progressing, which is good to see. Texas, a couple Friday nights ago, I've been here as an assistant for the last 9 years, was as good a team as I've seen that we've faced. Maybe Indiana a couple years when they were, number one in the country. But from a size, from a length, from an athleticism standpoint, how they were coached, they were legit, every bit of it. And then we were going to make them make some shots, and they made some shots early, and it got away from us quick. Iowa wasn't much different from a score standpoint. I did feel like we competed for a little bit longer. Under the 5-minute mark, it was a 7-point game in the first half. Some I shouldn't say uncharacteristics, some learning, growing pain mistakes that your freshmen are going to make. We made towards the end of the first half and to start the second half, which was disappointing. I wouldn't say we were at full strength at that game either. Corey was battling some sickness, some migraine. Paul had sprained his ankle really good in the Texas game. AJ had some shoulder issues that we were working through. But again, Iowa was a very talented, very well-coached team. Coming back Friday night, I think was maybe a microcosm of what you're going to see all year from us, taking a 20-point lead into half, blowing that, being down 3 and coming back and winning by 11 or 12. The whole time I could just envision, when Coach Miles was here and Ben Woodside's freshman year, we went out to Idaho State. We're up 23 at one point. Idaho State never led until overtime, and then we got beat. And it doesn't make it any easier, but it's the growing pains, the understanding of what we've got out there. But very pleased, obviously, to get the victory, win number 1 for this group. And then Saturday, I thought Hampton is a very talented team. Some transfers from Tennessee and around the country. From a pure talent standpoint, some guys that would be Summit League type players, in my opinion, and obviously in our league. And we responded. Give Hampton credit, 6 or 7 from the 3 in the first half. I thought we made it pretty difficult. At the same time, we changed some things a little bit, just more of our mentality, our aggressiveness, and responded very well in the second half. Again, in a shorthanded group with Corey being out. Exciting to see a couple freshmen playing well. At the same time, like I said, I wasn't going to get off the radio with Scotty on Saturday, and I won't leave here. Very, very proud of the way Carlin Dupree kind of handled himself. Had a frustrating game, maybe a little bit from a certain standpoint on Friday, 1 for 7 turnovers, but responded Saturday, 7 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and only 1 turnover. So, again, we're a work in progress, but we're progressing. Very well coached, very disciplined Crookston team coming to Shields Arena. Bring back Danny Weiss, a former director of basketball operations here. So it'll be exciting to welcome Danny back. I'll have any questions.
Will Corey be ready for Tuesday?
It's a good question. We're still trying to figure out exactly what happened. He was fine at shoot-around that day. He went out for warm-ups. He was fine. And about the 12-minute mark of warm-ups, an assistant came in and said, he tweaked something. And then as I went out there right before the game, they said, no, he's a no-go. So, he saw the trainer yesterday and looked better. We'll see how he is at practice today, and then we'll make a decision, before tomorrow night.
Back to Carlin for a second. Is he kind of the do-everything guy for this group? You look at his numbers, and they're pretty equal all across the board.
Yeah, and that's what we've got to get Carlin to understand. Carlin, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, Carlin from a pure talent standpoint is one of the most talented young men we've ever had in this program. And now it's, in fairness to Carlin, too, he wasn't with us last summer. He hurt the elbow in the preseason, was out a month. He got hurt again this preseason, and so he missed some time. He needs to gain some experiences on the court and let the game slow down for him. He has a tendency to catch it and bounce it right away, and just let things happen for him. But you saw, especially late, I was really pleased when we put the ball in his hands, and he made some good decisions, and that was a pleasant surprise, pleasant progress for him.
Is it a knee with Corey?
I think so. Yeah. Again, I haven't been involved, but it sounds like that. They don't seem too worried. At the same time, when one of your 2 guys that's been out there for a lot, it's obviously concerning as a head coach.
Did you sort of expect this performance from Paul Miller at the start of the season? I mean, it's been pretty good these past 2 games, and then the role that he's played being a true freshman.
Yeah, I wish I could say I expected that from a true freshman, but, I think you expect the unexpected. But Paul's been a pleasant surprise, there's no question. But I was telling some in the back room, it was late game situation. I brought him over to the bench, and he walks over to me, and you still think you're looking at like a 14, 15-year-old kid. At the same time, you see Paul's got good size. He makes good decisions. He shoots the ball at a high level. But I think the big thing that you kind of see is, when we needed a big shot against Kennesaw, he just rose up and hit that three, and just some swagger, some moxie to him as a freshman that is encouraging.
Do you envision this offense becoming a three-point shooting type of offense, spreading out the ball a little bit?
Yeah, and you can kind of see that. And if anybody that's been adjustment for, it's me. With a couple of new assistants, they can kind of see it, and we're gearing some things offensively towards that. But, you guys know us for the past 4 years. We've basically walked the ball down. We've waited for Marshall to get down in the post. We've ran 1 or 2 cuts. We've touched him, and then we've played out of it. And it's different. It's really different for myself, our newcomers, and you want to, as a coach, you think you going into a season, you're going to have your identity. What are we going to be? How are we going to be defensively? How are we going to be? But I think, we're still figuring out our identity, and it was good to see. Obviously, Paul carried a couple back-to-back games, but AJ to come out and be AJ that we know he is and will be. But yeah, we'll shoot a few more three-pointers than I probably like, but hopefully we make a few more than 2.
Are you guys prepared and big enough, capable of getting those guys inside for those offensive rebounds, though, of getting that position there?
Yeah, we're undersized. You look at what we lost and what we returned and getting some experience. But I think a guy like Dexter Warner, especially against Hampton, showed some progress. When Dexter's active, he can be really effective on the glass. He only goes about 6'5", 6'6", but he's a 6'10" wingspan. I'm very pleased, I should say, with how Chris Kading played this weekend. It's a luxury that we do have when our 5 men can step out and knock down threes, and when he can do that consistently, that opens some things up in the lane for other guys on penetration, and Corey's a guy that can finish in there. But yeah, size we are what we are, and it's not going to change. At the same time, you look at, we were ahead on the glass all weekend. We were ahead at Iowa in the first half on the glass, and so I have been surprised in a good way of how we've competed on the glass so far.
You've had a few games in there now at Shields Arena. How does it compare, I guess, to the old stomping grounds as far as atmosphere and just from your team's perspective?
We've gotten a lot of encouraging comments from our fans. The chair back seating and the temperature in there, and all those things, which is great. From a players and coaching's perspective, once you get out there, you don't really notice much, but it was fun to get the fans, in particular Friday night, behind us. And yeah, slowly, just like anything, it's becoming home for the next couple of years. And we did some things different, as an administration from the exhibition to this past weekend, and there's still some ideas that I have that we can continue to grow it and make it more and more of a home.
The next 2 weeks, how much is that going to define the season here? You got 2 trips to Montana and a trip to Mississippi coming.
Yeah, that's a great question. Some similar teams. Montana State. Big Sky opponents. Southern Miss is a very talented team. The part as a head coach that concerns me as we leave Saturday morning bright and early, fly to Montana, play, fly down to New Orleans, play, come back for a day, fly right back out to Montana, and those are the things. To me, there's 2. Winning's a lot of fun, but getting a road win is even more fun, and that's what that's that next step for a young group of guys to see how they handle things on the road. And I don't want to say anything this early is going to define us, Dom, just because of again, and I will be saying it all year. We're a work in progress, but it is going to be. We handle business at home, but now can we take our show on the road against some similar quote-unquote low to mid-major programs like ourselves?
We haven't talked a lot about Lawrence. His numbers are okay, but just kind of seems like he might just be off half a beat. Are you guys seeing that?
I think, again, it's an adjustment. Lawrence becomes not the 3rd or 4th option for a defense. He's now the 1st option. And that's some things, I think he was pressing a little bit, in particular on Friday night, and wasn't happy with his performance, and in how he handled himself translated into how our guys, they feed off of him a little bit. And him and I had a conversation Saturday morning about you can't get worried about how you're playing, and you got to understand, where your shots are going to come from and how you can help this group a little bit. And again, we're a work in progress, and that's what we're showing Lawrence too, is the attention that he's getting. What does that open up for everybody else on the perimeter?
Talked about work in progress, Dave, and understandably, when do you finally get to the point where you say, this is what we are, this is what we're going to run because we have to do it?
I was having a conversation with my father about that same thing, and I'm not so sure, Sean, it won't be until, mid-February. I think we'll get we'll get closer and closer to who we are, and you can kind of see some things coming along. We tweak some things with where we have our guys in offense, and I think that helped with maximizing who's getting touches. Late clock, we've got to get better executing. There's no question, and Carlin's progression will be huge in that because he is a special talent. In a one-on-one situation, he can get by, he can get head and shoulders by. Now we got to work with him on the decision, on the backside. But again, I'm not going to sit here and define a date or a time with this young group. We'll see. Evan Wiesenberg and Jake Showalter, two guys that are going to play for us. We need them to get better here in the next 6 weeks and give us some minutes, especially come conference time.
Talk a little about your team sort of evolving into a three-point shooting team. Chris Kading on the outside, he hit a couple of threes this weekend. Can we expect that a little more from him? Do you see him more in the post?
No, I mean, we're going to maximize everybody's talents, and that's something that Chris does well, especially when he's at the 5. He shoots it well, and it also drags the opponent's 5 out there, and so there's not as big a presence at the rim that opens things up. But yeah, it's like we touched on a little bit more. We're going to shoot a few more three-pointers than we have in the past. The hard part for me is when you always chart offensive efficiency rating and OER, points per possession, and you make a 3 and you miss the next 2, you're still at 1 point per possession, which is really good. It's just as a coach, you just think about the 2 empty trips. And again, we're all understanding, but yeah, there's no question that's a luxury for us, for Chris. And I think we've got a chance to compete night in and night out for most of our schedule. And if we can knock down some threes and open some things up, that will hopefully gap things even more for us.
How does your team react when they get a little cold and the threes stop falling?
Well, that's what was a little bit I shouldn't say disappointing, but an understanding of the start of the second half against Kennesaw. I thought how we played offensively affected us defensively, and that's what I talked to Lawrence and some of our senior leadership about is understanding the process, and you can't let one side affect the other. And again, that's what I was pleased, in the second half against Hampton when we were down 7. They came out and made it 2. We were down 9. I didn't think we ever let that affect us. We just kept battling, chipping away. You saw some toughness in some guys rally around each other, and that was really encouraging to see.